welcome to the FinTech deep dive session about the future of digital payment. I'm Moritz and will be the host for this session, and I will manage the chat and the Q&A session basically at the end of that session. With me, and I'm very happy that he is joining us remotely, is Peter Backenecker. He's the Divisional President, Germany and Switzerland for Mastercard. And Peter joined Mastercard actually 14 years ago and held various management positions. Before that, Peter was with Batten & Company as well as Roland Berger. And then on the other hand, also very happy that Florian Heinemann is joining. He is the co-founder of Project A, and he was managing director at Rocket Internet before. So I'm very much looking forward to that talk today about the digital payment future. Maybe just one or two hints at the beginning of that session. We have a chat at the right-hand corner. You might know that from other sessions as well, where you can just drop questions and I will collect them. And we have 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes at the end for Q&A session. And then Peter or Florian will answer them. And there was also the option at the very end of that talk that you can ask for grabbing the mic, meaning that you will pop up here in the window with your face, video on and microphone on, and can ask questions. With that being said, I think we can start, and I will hand over the word to Florian.
Yeah, also a warm welcome from my end. And with regards to the questions, I mean, Moritz will collect them very likely. If there's something really pressing or you have to comment because Peter or me said something terribly wrong or something that you disagree with, then you can obviously jump in right away, and we will try to like reflect that, like at that moment. Just indicate that to Moritz, and we can do that. Yeah. So we want to talk about four things today, or four rough areas. First, about probably a little bit about Mastercard itself, because although Mastercard is really a big company and a very well-known brand, not a lot of people know exactly what you guys do, apart from printing some numbers on plastic and you're able to pay with it. So we want to talk about that. Then we want to talk about the future of digital payments, like what are the big trends right now. And probably most interesting for the audience here is how can you get engaged with Mastercard? Yeah, because obviously you're an extremely interesting multiplier for startups. You're a cooperation partner with big startups like TransferWise or Moniz. You're working with a lot of these guys. And it would be great to dive a little bit deeper on how that actually works, how you can approach Mastercard. Obviously, whether the best idea is to write an email just to Peter himself and he will take care personally, probably not. But so let's talk about that. And then also, because we have a lot of people interested that might have entrepreneurial ambitions, but also people that just want to be working for a cool company. If you want to work for Mastercard, how would you actually do that? So those are the four areas. But let's talk about Mastercard itself. I think everybody's aware of the credit card, but you're doing much more. Can you describe a little bit what kind of areas you are involved in?
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Florian. Hello, everybody on the screen. Florian is right. We print numbers on plastic cards. We did that, and nowadays we try to provision them digitally in your mobile phone. That's most probably a good summary. 14 years ago, when I started, Mastercard was a company of 3,500 people. We are now 20,000 people all over the world. We do business in 200 countries. We have roughly 100 offices around the world, and plus minus a couple of billions. We have a market cap of $300 billion. Okay. What we do is payments, and we run a network, but this is actually only a very small part of what you can do with Mastercard. To give you an idea of the size, it's a network that connects over 50 million merchants around the globe. That on the other side connects roughly 30,000 institutions, right? 14 years ago, that was mainly banks, but it's also acquirers, it's digital players, it's mobile phone operators, and many, many, many more. On top of that, we do things like we are the second largest foundation in the world after Melinda and Bill Gates. And yeah, we sit on a very huge amount of data. We process with 2.6 billion cards out there. So there are 2.6 billion people that hold whatever kind of product that carries the Mastercard logo. We process roughly 90 billion transactions per year. So you can imagine there's tons of data available, a petabyte of history, my colleagues would say. And what you are doing with that, what you have done with that, that significantly changed over the last 10 years. Like all our life changed. Like we live now in a digital-centric world, and what you do as Mastercard and what is provided to our partners in the network is defining our success in the world, how these people connected to this network can actually use it. Our mission is simple. We want smart and secure transactions that are simple all over the world. Okay, so if you have a Mastercard product and you might know it from the past as a physical piece of plastic, what you put in a machine and you pay on your vacations, these things have to work everywhere, right? It doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter if it's a physical transaction where you are present somewhere or if it's a digital transaction. And when I talk about secure, that's most probably one of the most important things, cybersecurity, transaction security of our days. And you read the news, how many data breaches, leaks there are in the world. And consumer perception has changed to this regard, that actually the security matters most, and we invest lots of money into security, into AI, into cyber stuff, etc., to protect this network. What is obviously for cyber criminals, something very attractive, like our colleagues from other networks, correct? Mm-hmm. So finally, there must be smart in a sense that we use data, that we use available solutions from other partners in the industry to make a transaction smarter. And maybe an example, what everybody knows is that you have a transaction, that you get information to the transaction. That's very close to every consumer's heart, that you know what you actually bought at a merchant, at what time, where the merchant was located. This is stuff easily to understand. Mm-hmm. But smart can mean very, very different things in other parts of the world. If you use our products in the commercial space, in the B2B area, if you want to have a loan, if you want to provide an identity to an entity where you make new business with, and all these are things we can actually do with a Mastercard, the way with a network, the way Mastercard is structured. Mm-hmm. So, sure.
One thing that's very interesting to the people here is we talk a lot about network effects, and you have, and probably one of the reasons why Mastercard is so incredibly valuable also per FTE. I think you're like in the range of a Google or a Facebook when it comes to, or even higher when it comes to kind of valuation per FTE. So there must be underlying network effect. Can you describe a little bit what the network effects are with a company like Mastercard that make it so valuable and probably something that people can learn from that?
Oh, I mean, the key reason is definitely scalability, of course, and to have the financial capabilities to invest into everything what is needed to be a successful network player in this. Okay, mm-hmm. And let me talk a little bit about why the network is attractive, and then I come back to your question. Okay, so the size of the network, we know exactly that we can't manage all the problems in the world that are out there by our own. Okay. And there are two key effects that actually made us think about how we redesign our network. One is inclusion. And what that means is we all live in the digital area. And what happening out there, the digital transformation, is most probably bigger for all of our lives than the industrial revolution before. I mean, see COVID, right? See what we do today. We don't meet anymore in physical places. And, there are millions of examples how digitalization has changed our world. And for us, this is only sustainable the more people participate. Okay, so there's always this number that 2.5 billion people are not connected to the digital world, and within the last 5 years, we as an industry connected 500 million people to the digital world, to financial services, to information, to health services, etc., etc. Mainly driven by three things: technology, mobile phones, and clever startups everywhere in the world. And I said that at my breakout session earlier before. What is a nice example? One thing beforehand, to do all that, we run 12 labs around the world. Okay, everywhere in the world, we run labs, R&D centers, developers, product people that actually are the main point for local activities, to connect with fintechs, to connect with startups. And when I say startups, we don't mean financial service startups or payment startups as such. Okay. So in general, we categorize in three groups. Number one is enablers, so people that somehow move a payment from A to B. Paytechs, and then finally we call it value-added services providers, what can be AI, fraud, risk, and so on and so on. And so and then we connect them with the labs. There's a program on that. We call it Start Path, because what our network wants is access. What startups want is scalability. So for the startups, it's easy, right? You connect with us, you have these access to 50 million merchants and all the institutions. But for us, it's a win-win as well, because German banks want to know, hey, what kind of unsecured lending startups are there in the rest of the world? What kind of ecological footprint startups are there in other part of the world? And we screen them. So to give you an idea, we screened 10,000 startups since the inception of StartPath, what is 6 years ago. We took 200 into the program. What that means is like a 6 month collaboration. They come to us, we bring technology to them. We invested 90 million in the last 2 years in some of them. Okay.
So that would also be a way, if you want to get an investment from Mastercard, because you're quite active, that often happens through this Start Path collaboration first, and then if the fit is there, you would also do an investment. Is that a viable kind of path?
The answer, it depends, Florian. So we do two things. We provide the startup capabilities to our partner. Okay. I read recently that in Europe, 38% of unsecured lending comes from startups nowadays. That was 5% 5 years ago. Right. And there are many, many banks and financial service institutions that actually want access to this kind of services. You know all the buzzwords, open banking platforms, multi-banking, and so on, so on. And we provide the connectivity between these players and some of our network partners. But then we have solutions where we see, that could actually be good for the value of our network. Okay. And if we invest, we don't want an exit. Right, we want the solution. An example from the area of Munich, Ride, for those who've heard it, it's an in-car payment platform or an in-car platform to do intelligent things with smart cars, right? From data, from payment, from unassisted shopping. And, we see the value of smart cars for the future in the long run, right? And we invested together with Daimler into the startup to be part of the journey. And there are others like in Sweden, the economy, a provider of information about the ecological footprint you produce with the consumption you're doing. Okay, so you, Florian, it's an app integration. You can see with my consumption habits, I produce so much CO2 and I can do this in these activities because people want to be aware of it. People want to make changes, and it's a capability we love, right? Our network partners like it, and maybe in the distant future we would connect this service to our core network, and then you have the leverage of 2.6 billion cards out there. Correct. So it really depends, but in the wonderful world of payments, data, and technology, there's a new vertical to enter on regular basis. If you take a look, what happens in governments. Germany is unfortunately a little bit behind the curve globally, if you see that. But there are many, many governments that are much more digitalized than ours. I'm not talking about schools here because I assume for those that have kids, we all have our own experiences, right? But there are many, many governments those days, they pay out social disbursements or corona support programs via digital means, correct? Mm-hmm. So, and we can't do that, right? So we can provide the network, but we need partners, and startups provide many, many advantages. They are agile, they are quick, they are nimble, they don't have technology legacy and all of that. And then we help them, we partner together actually to increase the value of our network. That's our idea, right? We don't want to put money into a startup and then exit a couple of years later.
Okay, so it always has to be strategic reasoning. But if you want to get in touch with one of these labs because you think you have something to add, what's the best way? I mean, can you check it out on the Mastercard website?
Yeah, for sure. There's a Mastercard developer zone. You see it all, right?
Okay.
There are the usual SDKs for our APIs. There is links to StartPath, and there are our labs. Okay, it's 12. The one in Europe is in Dublin. And maybe one extra point on this, from the 12, there's one with a very special purpose, the one in Kenya. The other 11 we run ourselves. This particular one we run together with Melinda and Bill Gates Foundation to do special social inclusion projects for the area around South Africa.
Mm-hmm. Before we go back to startups, I quickly want to touch also on the future of digital payments. I mean, what are the key things you see there? I mean, obviously, there's like digital payments like Apple Pay, etc. How does it influence? Let's probably first talk about Apple Pay, Samsung Pay, etc. How does it change your role or your position? Does it make you more powerful, less powerful, more important, less important? How do you work with these people? And what are the other trends that you think one should currently think about when thinking about digital banking? So you mentioned already like open banking. Is that relevant in your opinion? What's your view on this? But let's start with this Apple Pay, Samsung Pay thing first. I mean, how does it influence you guys in your position there?
So we provide the same network services than for any other partner, right? So Apple Pay, Samsung Pay, any other pay actually runs on the lines or the rails of payment scheme. Okay, it's a question that has been asked many times, not now. It has been asked 4 or 5 years ago. Okay, so what do you do with the new kids on the block, especially if they have a brand power like Apple or Samsung? Correct? And the answer is easy. The worst thing you can do is build walls, correct? Because Apple, Samsung, Google, whoever, they find a way to break into your castle, right? So then better, welcome them as part of the club and integrate these solutions into the network. And at the end, I mean, you can argue this many ways, but at the end, it's what consumers want. Correct. It's not what Mastercard wants or anybody else. And consumers want convenience. They want safe payments. I think they understand more and more that the technical capabilities of an iPhone or Samsung phone is worth much more than a physical piece of plastic with an EMV chip on it. So this decision was made 4 or 5 years ago. It's just another player within the network, and we want to provide the services. So here we are. Some stats on that, 80% of all European transactions are contactless those days, meaning you don't touch terminal. 20% out of that is already now on mobile phones. Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's a magnificent uptake of mobile payments. And if you think about it, right, from a technology standpoint, why should you not use it? And yeah, that was this. So our role in it is the same than for any other issuer or for any other bank that is connected.
Okay, that's an interesting piece, interesting point. Can you talk a little bit about crypto? I mean, crypto, or first of all, blockchain, and then cryptocurrencies in this. Are you involved at all in this? I mean, because people have to differentiate, obviously. I mean, there's the blockchain on the one hand side, it's like a technical solution, and then there's cryptocurrencies on the other. There's people like PayPal, etc., that said you can now pay with crypto, so you can link your crypto account to PayPal. Is that something that Mastercard is pursuing? What's your view? First, probably about blockchain, and then about cryptocurrencies.
So if I'm not mistaken, I think it was a year ago, somebody told me we hold the second most patents on blockchain after Google.
Okay.
So I guess that's the answer.
You take it serious. Yep.
So that's the answer. Let me go back in time. So we were founding partners of Libra. We decided to move out, not because we don't believe in blockchain, but we believe that especially currency sovereignty and all of that needs to be regulated, and the rules of the game must be clear and established in every country for everyone when you do these things. Okay, so I personally, and I think I can speak for Mastercard as well, we believe in the technology of blockchain, right? Decentralized ledgers is something that is here to stay. Full stop. In what way, in what form, we will see. Currently, when I talk about crypto or bitcoins and all of that, me personally, as a consumer, I don't see too many great legal use cases, right, nowadays for these kind of things, but it will change. And especially in corporate banking, when you take a deeper look into the correspondence system worldwide, so how corporates with each other transfer large amounts of money, how inefficient it is, how expensive it is, how unsecure it is, it's definitely time for blockchain to revolutionize that, correct? Mm-hmm. And there are many, many other use cases. I don't know if you heard about it, but the government of Venezuela, for example, they do property rights based on a blockchain. Okay, so here your property rights are one of the key reasons how you can gain wealth in a community, right? So if you are a farmer in Venezuela, you come home and somebody bribed off the local sheriff, then your land is gone because, right, there's no property registration. So Venezuela is doing this with a blockchain. Even you don't have to go to Venezuela, you can go to Greece, I think, where 60% of the land is not properly registered. Right, so blockchain can really solve a lot of problems. I personally believe there is lots of use cases in the corporate environment. It will take longer for the private use cases, like for you and me. We also need to make sure that this is regulated and stable. Right, if you want to give the access or control sovereignty about your wealth to Mark Zuckerberg, I leave that to everyone to make his or her own judgments. But when it's time and there's a solution and all these answers, all these questions are answered, we will definitely play a role. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, but that's very interesting, and I think it also has to differentiate, as you said, rightfully so, between like cryptocurrencies and like the technology of blockchain. I think that's very important. But it's actually interesting to see that also quite a lot of serious investors and family offices, etc., are putting substantial amounts in crypto. And
we have our private blockchain as well up and running for test purposes, right, with some selected partners.
Okay. No, but that's is there anything? I mean, the open banking kind of trend, if I understood you correctly, that should be something that you welcome because you've practiced kind of at least the thinking behind it, like welcoming other players on your network anyway. So open banking, API-based kind of procedures, if security is kind of warranted, seems to be something that's natural to your DNA anyway. Is that fair to say?
Open banking, I mean, we ourselves provide solutions for open banking, correct? So maybe a word on this. So our idea, when I talk to my management, what they talk about is multi-rails. So you have one connection to the network, and in the past you could pay with a physical card, and in the future it should be via account, via open banking, payment initiator services, digital IDs, all of that, right? It's about the network, and open banking is definitely one. I guess what is always underestimated in open banking is the consequences of it. Because, I mean, transferring money from A to B is an easy thing. But putting all the extra stuff on top about anti-money laundering, cybersecurity, all of that is where the problem starts, right? A real-time open banking system is the wet dream of every cyber criminal in the world, or everybody who wants to do anti-money money laundering, because the moment you cross borders, it's hard to track and learn all of these things. And we do these things globally since 60 years, so we believe we have a right to play, and we have the solutions to actually do this in a better way or in a more secure way. And yes, all of that is on top of our strategic priority list for the future.
Mm-hmm. Let's go back probably a little bit to the startup topic before we go back to the employee topic. So if I understood your motivation right, it's really about getting involved in startups. Startups is not necessarily a financial kind of consideration, but it's more how can we improve the network and serve our partners better. That's kind of the idea. So if you would like to get support or cooperate with Mastercard, is like talking to these labs, is that the best way?
Talking to labs is always a start, right? It's about getting a local person to actually connect to you. Okay, let me bring the same example I brought in the fireside chat like an hour ago. Okay, because it illustrates what we did and what the idea was. There was a young startup called Tractor. You ask yourself, what has Mastercard to do with tractors? And I mean tractors. I mean farming equipment. Okay. So in Nigeria, and they had the idea of giving local farmers, micro farmers, access to modern harvesting equipment, right? Because there's a very big difference to you if you plow your field with a donkey versus a very modern tractor. Okay, so they came with this idea. They geolocated them. They had access to providers of these services, and they had the idea, so they conquer the world and change agriculture in Nigeria. So they came to the labs and they said, guys, there's many other problems in that, because first of all, the guys who rent this equipment want to have some information about these people, and these people are not financially included. You don't have a credit history, you don't have an idea, right? So labs developed a platform, put that together with an agricultural bank in Nigeria, together with a provider for agricultural information about crop prices. And at the end, there was an application where when you are a farmer and you have harvesting time, you can inform yourself. It's all, web-based, API connected about what's the next date for the proper area available. And can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I have a strange background noise. So there was this part available, and then for the guys who rent these $1 million tractors, there was financial information and a sort of history and an ID. And for the farmer itself, there was information about current crop prices, and they don't need to be cheated by the people that come accidentally by their farm. So these are things labs do. Right? There's a Mastercard component in it, not much, right? But it's a technical solution for inclusion. If you are an American company and you do business in 200 countries, most of them you have to earn the rights, right, to do that, and you have to deliver to a society and to problems. And this is what only startups can do, right? I mean, my colleagues have no bloody clue about farming equipment and what a modern tractor looks like. But putting these things together with a bank, with an ID, with a credit history, with maybe access to credit to rent the farming equipment before you can sell your harvest. This is the power of the collaboration, correct? And this is a very underdeveloped kind of example, but shows very nicely where it can go.
I mean, many corporates also do like the startup game in the sense to cooperate with startups in order to find their potential disruptor, who could basically do something that you have been doing in the past and do that better in any way. Where do you see startups could come from that kind of change the rules of the game that you guys have, and together with Visa probably? I mean, Visa is very similar on what you guys do, and also extremely successful all over the globe. Is there something where you say, if that happens, that is really something that could change the rules of the game completely? I learned that mobile payment is not really it, because it uses the same kind of infrastructure. But it would be interesting. It would be interesting to understand what could be developments that change the game completely.
There are so many people that try to take over, a part of our Visa's, scheme business. Let me say it that way. The good thing is the space is so big, right? So still 80% of all transactions in the world are cash. Still, the inefficiencies in the corporate or B2B banking system are so huge, right? There's so much to gain. Okay, I mean, if you want numbers, so the overall payments business is a 2 trillion business, so 2,000 billions. Okay, but everything, fees, interest, all of that. So roughly 40% out of that go to the issuing banks. So to give you a magnitude of size, our revenue is around 15. Okay, so globally, and there is all the opportunity digitalization brings to us. There are lots of inefficiencies in the system. There's lots of cash out there, and there will always be cash out there, right? Usually when people see me, here's the guy who hates cash, and that's not true. So all of these things provide plenty of opportunity to grow. So yes, in our existing business, you can argue it's only a question of time when there will be a third scheme. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, and there's cryptocurrency. Yeah, there will be cryptocurrencies. No question, right? But there will be a Mastercard cryptocurrency as well, and then it's competition, fair competition. But there are many spaces where we can actually drive this together. Maybe there are parts of our business that will be just, phase out in a couple of years. Who knows, right? The pace goes on in payments as it has been gone in the last 5 to 10 years. Then we most probably speak in the Project A conference 2030 about very, very different things. But there's enough space.
Okay. Before we go over and check whether, there's still some unanswered questions, I would like to talk a little bit about, because there's also lots of people here at the conference that want to understand how to work for Mastercard. I mean, if you are an employee or a potential employee, how does it work? I mean, what kind of people work at Mastercard? I understand it's like how many of the people of the 20,000 is tech people? How many are business people? Do you recruit at all? I mean, what are
we recruit, and so we are nearly 21,000 people, okay, all around the world. When I do recruiting, I always tell one story. So I came 14 years ago. I came with 4 other colleagues from a strategy consulting background, end of 20s, the world is ours, and, let's conquer it and let's do something else every 2 years. So I can tell that all 5 of us are still there, okay? And this is because when you grow a company from 3,500 people to 21,000 people, there's plenty of opportunity if you can live with ambiguity. Okay, so Mastercard is definitely not a place to work for if you want to come and say, oh, here's my 12 months plan, and after 8 months somebody comes and asks me, what have you achieved? That's the wrong kind of description, right? If you see how many things have happened in payments in the last 10 years, how many things have died, very bad debt, and how many people try things, we do the same, right? We try things, we try to live with all the uncertainty and cope with all the opportunities, and trying is what we want. Failing, okay, fine, right? And we can, thanks God, we can afford that. And, within Europe, I think it's 4,500 people out of the 21,000. Our headquarters are officially Belgium and London. Our tech hub sits in Dublin, and we want to recruit 1,500 new people over the next 3 to 5 years just in Dublin. Okay. We work remotely since 15 years. So for me, it's nothing new sitting in my living room, right? We did that since 15 years, home office Friday, home office Monday, whatever. Nobody really cares where you are. Of course, that's a little bit too much now. We all agree on that. And just, get in touch. I learned that I think 60% of our people are millennials, so below 40, I guess, is the current definition. With a consulting and banking background like me, I'm an exotic person nowadays, right? People come from the tech industry, people come from merchants, right? It's a long time ago where we recruited traditional bankers with white-collared shirts, right? So it's a great environment, it's very flexible, and just apply.
Okay, perfect. That sounds good, Moritz. I guess now you are here. We want to cover the remaining questions in the remaining 7 minutes that we have. What questions are still open? I didn't follow it that closely, to be honest.
Yeah, no worries. I followed it, and I think a few were already answered, but there are still a few open ones. So let's take first a question from Markus Drenat at Peter. Do you see any tech developments coming up that could attack Mastercard's business model in the future?
Yes, I said all of them. That's most probably the beautiful thing in tech. There is this line I personally like, and that is there is no credit for the past. Correct? So running a 50-year network doesn't mean you have the right to do the same stuff for the next 50 years, because you have to keep up with the technological changes and all of that. There are the obvious ones like blockchains, where you can transfer money from A to B, even if lots of the things are unanswered. But why not a Mastercard blockchain, right? It's the same opportunity for us than for anybody else. Then there's lots of nationalistic interests those days, right? So if you are in the payment space and you read about, we need a European answer to the American payment companies and all of that, but maybe we find a way to do that together in a sense that pleases the European interests and many, many others, right? There's digital IDs coming that will change the way we interact. There is lots of threats coming from cybersecurity with machine-to-machine communications and all of that will exponentially increase the risk, right? And all of these are areas that put it at risk, but all of these are areas we invest heavily in since decades and years, and partners with startups, with legacy players, with all of them. And we hope and we think we can play a role in that.
Okay, perfect. I think that answers the question. Thanks. There are two remaining questions. One is about open banking. So Stefano asked, Visa acquired Plate, the largest open banking TPP in US, whilst Amex acquired Cabbage to improve credit scoring and launch SME loans. And then his question, that is, could you elaborate on the idea of building API account connectivity in-house or integrating some players like Visa Plate?
So we invested in some as well, things like Token.io and others in the US, where I currently lost the name. Apologies for that. Yes, we work on it. We work on our own in-house open banking applications to do that. And to miss that boat would definitely be a mistake, right? So we want to offer the same services. As I said, we called it multi-rail. So if you connect to Mastercard, I would like to be able to do API-based account transactions. For those that are a little bit deeper into it, we are the owners of VocalLink, so one of the largest ACH providers that offers this functionality in the UK, where open banking is a couple of years ahead of where we are in Germany. So the answer is yes, we will integrate that into our network. We are working on it. We have the same, portfolio of partnerships, financial investments, etc. What is critical is if you want to completely take over one of these players or just financially invest with them or make agreements, because who can say he is not biased if he is owned by one scheme? Correct? That's always a tricky question. I don't have one general answer for that.
Okay. Thanks for that. And then last but not least, I think there's one open question left. Talking about farming, will Mastercard support more during COVID and all the issues which belong to it?
Support who? Maybe a couple of words on COVID. We have an increased engagement with most of the governments around the world who actually, on the one hand side, want to use data to make prediction as good as is possible. We also use our rails to do payouts of immediate credits, social disbursements, etc. We also try to do our utmost best to support local businesses and small businesses who are especially hit hard by this crisis and might not have the financial capabilities to survive much longer. Yeah, we do all these. Yeah.
Great. Thanks. Then there is no additional question in the chat. If somebody wants to grab the mic, now's the chance to do that.
Yeah. And intimidate Peter with a really hard question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Somebody dares? Nope. Don't think so.
If that's not the case, we are actually on time, which is good in the interest of the overall program. Thanks a lot, Peter, for joining in, and thanks a lot also for the audience to provide the questions. And if in hindsight anything might, there's somebody requesting the mic.
So now, Johannes, I will give you access, and you will pop up here.
Where is Johannes? There's Johannes.
Hi, Peter. Hi. Time. Sorry, I was a little bit late getting everything set up. I have one question. I'm talking about emerging markets, which is my field, building a payment solution marketplace in Africa. And I was thinking, what do you think is the scope for innovation in these kinds of countries, right? So we're always talking about the Western world a little bit, saying, wow, what's the next big thing that's going to revolutionize everything? But what do you think in the emerging markets is a feasible thing that to come up in the next decade?
I guess there's no single simple answer to that. You have developments like M-Pesa, right? We're very successful in Africa to transfer money. I guess our overall goal is to connect people to digital, right? And that might be very especially, in North Africa to compare to Sub-Saharan Africa. We do things around farming, information providing, healthcare, right? So we are the partner of the United Nations World Vaccination Database, right? Where we provide platforms to actually make sure people don't miss their next shot, right? When they live in rural areas and come to these vaccination centers. So I guess connectivity is the key thing, right? And whenever you build this, we are all used to, hey, mobile phones and iPhone number 10, 11, 12. We see the difficulties in your part of the world with feature phones, right? And we do so many things there with school meals and school money that needs to be transferred, and people don't need to walk for 2 hours to pay that, and all of these things, right? So I guess connectivity is key, bringing people into the system, and then building applications on top of that infrastructure that either can solve educational problems, health problems,
energy,
malnutrition, and all of that. Correct?
Great. Yeah, it's exciting. I think connectivity and data and financial inclusion especially is a key area to work on. Thanks for your answer.